Welcome back. It has no doubt been a busy week in the news here in Milwaukee and across the state. Wednesday, a jury acquitted a former Milwaukee police officer of reckless homicide in the shooting death of Seville Smith.
Thursday, an appeals court upheld a lower court's ruling in the wrongful conviction of Brendan Dassey. This gets Dassey one step closer to freedom. Attorney Schimmel, what's your next move?
Well, our next move will seek a review by the entire 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. It's called an en banc review of all the judges. There are 9, and filing that motion will stay the proceedings from the 3-judge panel, and we'll wait that out. You get the panel's given to you randomly, and you don't know what you're going to get. We drew a panel that we knew was going to be a tougher one to prevail in front of.
But ultimately here, do you think this will end in a new trial for Brendan Dassey?
Well, I don't, and if I thought that the federal district court was right in their decision, we wouldn't be pursuing the appeal. But we think the judge got it very wrong. What happened
about
in
the
this,
coercion, you
right.
know, how that interview with Brendan at that time.
Right. What happened in this case were fairly typical law enforcement methods of interviewing people, and it's not just that. Certainly, being in a law enforcement interview is coercive, just to any degree, but it has to be something that overbears someone's will, and we don't believe it got to that.
If you don't get your way and the next step is a retrial, is your team ready to take that step?
We'll take those things as they come, but right now we'll keep working on the appeals, and hopefully we'll get some finality this soon for Teresa Halbach's family.
Sure.
You were very involved in the DOJ as it reviewed the Dominic Heaggan-Brown police shooting. We just had the trial this past week, acquitted. And one of the things even DA John Chisholm brought up was body cameras. We have been talking a lot about this, the need for officers to have this. But what was your take then on the outcome of this trial and the importance of the body cam video, which we are showing some of it?
Well, I think first off, the most important thing is that things have remained calm, that it appears that the people of Milwaukee are accepting the verdict of the jury and accepting that they worked hard and weighed the evidence carefully and objectively, and hopefully it's going to stay that way. Body cameras have turned out to be very helpful tools. In many cases, they have helped determine the truth. And sometimes they've helped determine the truth when someone's making a false claim against a law enforcement officer. That happens with some frequency. They are expensive, not to buy the equipment, but to do the public records responses where you have to redact things and the data storage. But ultimately, they aren't always going to be the silver bullet for us. They aren't always going to show everything we need to know. And even in the best of circumstances, they provide a very narrow window of only seeing what they're pointed at. So that's why it's very important to us when we do these investigations. We don't release the body camera video early, because there's much more to the investigation than just what that camera shows.
Sure, but I guess what kind of threw me off is that when Chisholm said directly, this is an accountability tool, and it was that camera. It was what he saw in those 3 seconds that he felt a need to charge that former officer with negligence, with reckless homicide. We've had cameras before. We've had dash camera. We had the Derek Walker case. And yet the camera shows something, and sometimes you say that it doesn't always tell the full story.
Well, and the challenge in this case was that there was no disagreement from anyone that the first shot from the officer was justified. And then there's the question of whether 1.69 seconds later, the officer went from defending himself to being a murderer. Mm-hmm. And I'm frankly not surprised that the jury wouldn't make that leap. That's a very short time to turn your thought process and your actions around on a dime.
All right, we have about a minute left here. Another big story that's going to go before the U.S. Supreme Court. Someone thinks there's a person out there named gerrymandering, but it actually refers to what has been going on in this legal battle about the redistricting, how the maps were drawn in Wisconsin to determine who you vote for and where you vote.
Right.
I mean, I know it's a big case, but
we've never had a Supreme Court decision that has offered any clear guidance on how to handle the issue of political redistricting. They've addressed it when it's a racial-based redistricting problem, but never touched it on this. So this is a place where I believe both sides agree that it is a very good thing that the United States Supreme Court's going to hear this case.
Democrats want the maps redrawn now while you wait. The Supreme Court said hold off on that, right?
Yes, and that makes good sense. If the Supreme Court rules on the side of the state, then we'll have wasted a lot of energy and resources to do it. Even if they rule against us, the odds are they're going to give us a more precise standard than the lower court gave. So either way, it's probably a waste of time to get started now.
Brad Schimmel, thank you very much
for
coming and spend some time with us.
All right, well, coming up, we will take you to the cool spot.
A place where Milwaukee kids play safe and learn during the hot summer months.